Well, hello guys, welcome back to John's Workshop, and in this video we're going to go a bit further on with the shaper refurb. We're not actually going to be doing any refurbishment at all in this video. What we are going to be doing is building the dolly, or trolley as some people may know it, to sit underneath the shaper so that we can then shuttle this thing around in the workshop and out of the workshop to do a lot of the cosmetic work that I need to do, plus the rebuild work once we've got that done, and then more longer term for that to be permanently fixed in place so that we can use it for a stand for the machine. And then if I ever need to move the machine in the future, which I know I'm going to have to do, it's as simple as drop it onto the wheels, wheel it out of the workshop and into the back of a lorry. Nice and easy. So that's the plan. So my last video, if you looked at the shaper refurb number 1, right at the very end of that video you'll have seen me stood at the welding table with some raw materials cut, ready to go. So we're going to pick up from that point, and you're going to have a jolly good laugh at my poor attempts of welding and fabrication. As I often say, and I'll say it every time I'm doing it, I am no welder. I've never had really any formal training. I've got a poor welding kit, I nearly swore. It's not ideal, it's not brilliant. It's got its apologies, it's very old, it's also got far too heavy a reel of wire on it. It should only have 5 kilogram reels, I've got a 15 kilogram wheel, so there's lots of things going against me, but in the main part my own skill and experience is the biggest limitation factor when it comes to welding. But I do enjoy it, and every time I've created something I get some satisfaction from that. So I think we've gone through most of the things on the board. Actually lifting the machine off its current wooden blocks into the dolly is going to be exciting. Let's just call it that. I don't like lifting stuff in here on my own particularly. There's not a lot of room, so that's going to be fun when we get to that bit. So without any more babbling, we'll get right back into the welding bench, and we'll start putting this dolly together. Okay, so we've got pretty much the frame done, welded, got my struts in, and what these are for, I've actually gone and bought some of these. I was going to make some, but for how much they cost, I just went and bought some. I bought them at 100mm long, not really knowing what size I needed, and I'm just measuring that up. So I just need to measure really how much I need to take off the thread. So if I take 40mm off the end of the thread, in this end I'm going to leave this top end because it's got a hex on for a spanner. So these are just proper heavy duty machine leveling feet, so I've got 4 of those. The nut that I've welded on underneath will work against that. Everything's in compression, all of this is in compression, lifting underneath and lifting up, so that should all be okay. So I'm going to shorten 4 of these now by 40mm, and then we'll just loosely fit them, see what that looks like. So I'll bring you back when I'm doing that. So we've got our first one fitted, so you can see there we've got a lock nut, washer, the hex on the top of the shaft, and we've got our machine foot. So at the moment we've got the wheel on the ground, and you can see the idea. I mean, I'm just doing it, obviously I'd have to do it using the spanner flats, but just for the demonstration I can spin the bottom. To that point we lock the lock nut off at the top, and now this wheel's clear of the ground. So 4 lots of that equals machine fixed firmly to the ground with proper machine feet, and the ability then to jack that off quite quickly, drop all 4 wheels on the ground and move the machine anytime I want to. And I've seen some on the internet, I've seen some on YouTube, sorry, some really clever designs done of systems where the machine feet stay static and you've got this kind of spring loaded subframe affair that you've got a pedal that you stand on, and that drops the wheels down and lifts the whole unit up, whatever it is, machine, whatever. And that's fine. I mean, it would be nice to make something that complex, but I'm just trying to keep it really simple. You know, for the amount of times you're only ever going to jack these down when your machine's in its final resting place and it's going to be used. So largely the amount of times you're going to do that is probably seldom, once or twice in the machine's lifetime. So really all that additional effort for this machine, at least, where the machine will be stuck in one place, isn't really necessary. So I thought, let's just make the feet jackable, and then I can jack it down, and then when I want to move it I can jack it back up again, drop it onto the wheels, move the machine. And obviously for the duration of the rebuild and everything else that I'm doing, these feet will be in the completely up position, and it'll just stay on the casters the whole time until I'm ready to locate it in its final position. So I'll get the other 3 done like this, and then that will probably be all coming back off for now because there's paint and clean up needed done. So, but I'll get the other 3 done to that standard. There we go. We've just cut this bit. It was a bit left over from when I made my bench. It's 25mm thick marine ply. It's a bit warped because of how it's been thrown in the shed, but so I've got a bit of a rock that way. It's fine that way, but I can squash that down with both my thumbs, so I'm fairly sure 300 kilograms sat on top of there is going to have no problem at all taking that warp out. So, two reasons I've done that. One, to distribute the weight of the machine more evenly across the framework, and secondly, I've just turned my machine into a cupboard and a storage area. So in the base there's a big hole in the side, and with this in the bottom I can now just put tooling, other things in through that side door onto this bottom shelf, and it's just created some storage space in the bottom of the machine. So that is about all I'm going to do to this. I could go round, you know, I've got bits of weld here and there, just slightly proud of the outside where the wheels have gone on and bits like that. I could go and, you know, blast all that off and make it super duper. It's a machine dolly at the end of the day. I'm more than happy with it as it is, as long as it takes the weight of the machine and moves it around and I can jack off the floor, then I'm more than happy with that as it is. So the next job now, I now need to decide what order I'm going to do things in, because I now need to get the machine into here so that I can start playing around with getting it sanded off, but also I need to paint this, and I also need to paint the base of the machine that goes in the bottom, and I'm really not sure what order I'm going to do all that in. I think I'm going to drop the machine in just as it is for now, keep this raw, do most of the machine, and then right at the end we'll probably just lift the machine back up, stick it on some wooden blocks, go around the bottom of the machine with a wire wheel, degrease it, paint this, and then drop the machine back in, and then start painting everything from there upwards is probably the order of the day. So I will probably bring you back just shortly when we're doing some sketchy lifting to see if we can get the machine off the floor and into here and see what happens. Alright then, boys and girls, this is what you call sketchy as fiddlesticks, and that's the polite version. So there's nothing really to lift this with, and I've got no lifting eyes or shackles or anything like that, so I'm just purely reliant on slings. So I've kind of wrapped it under this, two slings under the plate at the four corners, central lifting, and I've wrapped a third sling round the outside, and it's just around the bearing housing this side, and it's not really what you'd call tight, but it's there to try and stop this left hand corner here slipping out, because it hasn't got a lot of purchase under there. It shouldn't do, because the forces are inwards, but the back end is slightly heavier, meaning it does slightly cant towards the back, but not by much at all. I was thinking about strapping a big weight on the front to try and level that up, but I don't think it needs it. But the issue I've got is my new dolly won't fit underneath the bottom framework of this engine crane, so I've either got to lift this thing up 3 feet in the air to be able to get the dolly underneath, which I am not wanting to do, and I'm not going to do because I'm not confident enough in this slinging method, or I've got to come up with another way. So what we're going to do is lift it up just off the wooden chocks. We're going to tap the wooden chocks out the way, we're going to lower it down within ½ an inch of the ground, so if anything goes wrong at that point it's a ½ inch drop before it hits the deck, hopefully no damage. We're then going to shuffle it round through 90 degrees and then sit it in front of the dolly, which is behind me. Then we've got a straightforward upwards lift, slide the dolly in underneath it, and then drop it on top of the dolly. That's the plan. I'm just going to go and have a breather. I hate this stuff. I don't mind it where you've got proper shackles, lifts, lifting eyes, all that kind of thing, but when you're working on your own, like I am, and you've got nobody to bounce ideas off, yeah, when it's a bit sketchy like this, it's a bit of a concern. But we'll give it a try. I think this thing probably weighs 1/4 ton in its current state, so it's not light. And yeah, I'll be back in a minute. Right, there goes nothing. That's lift number 1 out of the way. Now to try and move it. So we've shuffled through 90. All seem to be reasonably well behaved. So here we go. Try and stop it swinging a bit. If it lets go now, it's going to make a noise. Wow, you bugger. That's not helpful either. It's not, I can't get it far enough into the A-frame. I hope you lot are enjoying this more than I am. Just believe me. I'm not enjoying it. At all. That's the pressure off the slings. Appears to be on the wheels. It ain't collapsed yet. So, successful transplant. I've now got my shaper on wheels, which is going to help for all the work that I've got to do to it coming up. So I'm going to take you to the board now after I've had a little light liquid refreshment, and we'll close this episode out, and I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. Just a quick look. There we go guys, that's it. Back in the position we started in on its new wheels, and an extra added bonus is that's going to be at a much better working height, raised up a good 6 inches from its original level on the ground. So sort of two good things in one. Just to give you an idea of the room that I've had to play around with doing that job, I'll just spin you around. You can see how tight it is doing anything with that engine crane in here. It is very, very, very tight indeed, shuffling things around, which is another good reason to put everything on wheels. So once, well, with the exception of the lathe, once I've done this with the shaper and we've got the shaper done, I'm going to do similar with the mill, I'm going to do similar with the surface grinder, and similar with the bandsaw. So they're all going to be on wheels other than the lathe, which I'll leave on its pads just because it needs to be levelled up, you know, much better. So as I said, I'll just bring you back to the board. I've breathed a sigh of relief now, and we'll close this episode out. So there we go then guys, that gets us to the end of number 2 in the shaper rebuild, albeit we've not done any shaper rebuilding. But yeah, that's got our dolly made, that's got the machine sat onto it, which is just going to make the whole of the rest of the process so much easier now, because the thing's mobile. I can shift it around, move it around, work around it, all that kind of thing, as I said before. So I hope you enjoyed that and had a jolly good laugh at some of my welding, which I'm sure a blind man would be happy to see. Most of it, it's not the best, but it's certainly structurally, I think, good enough for what it needs to do. So with all of that being said, and it's now, after that lifting experience, time for a small amount of liquid refreshment. I've now finished all my work in here for today. So with all that being said, thank you all for watching, thank you for subscribing, thank you to the new subscribers that have come along, and we'll join you all very soon on another video when we'll be making something else.